Now we turn to President Tinubu's sweeping changes at the NNPCL. The shakeup at Nigeria state-owned oil company signals a major shift in the country's energy policy. But will these changes bring efficiency and transparency, or are they simply political maneuvering? To help us unpack this, we'll be speaking with Engr Yabagi, who will be helping us analyze this and understand what this means for Nigerians who are asking the question, what comes next? Engr Sani, as always, thank you so much for joining us in the program. Compliments of the season.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
Same to you.
First of all, your reaction to the late night news that Kyari has been replaced as the Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPCL.
Well, I think it has come too late, I had expected, and I'm sure most watchers of the oil and gas sector had expected that the same kind of reorganization, and changes that were introduced at the Apex Bank, that is the CBN, would have been also immediately, introduced in NNPC, because those are the two sectors of the economy. If you like, in fact, it's more of NNPC, because when you talk about the major reforms that this government came up with, which is removal of subsidy on petroleum products and unification of the naira, the foreign exchange, which is also removal of subsidy, isn't it? And you ask yourself, subsidy on naira, subsidy on fuel, they are all can be traced. The source of them can be traced to NNPC, because it's from NNPC that we get the foreign revenue, which we now put in our foreign reserve, which helps to sustain the value of naira. So which means the two subsidies were from the oil and gas sector. So if you now announce that these two subsidies were mismanaged and Nigerians were taken advantage of by people who were put in charge of this in collaboration with some people outside the system, then what you should have done is to ensure that you introduced necessary changes that would change the face of that place and will give you the opportunity for your reforms, those hard decisions that you took, to really have effect of serving the interests of Nigerians. But here we are, I don't know, almost 2 years now, before you now, carry out the necessary reforms in the NNPC, which is the major sector of the economy, really. If you look at our economy from the point of view of the international and domestic, you look at the forward and backward linkages of other sectors of the economy with oil and gas sector, you will have no choice but to micromanage, if you need to, as a president, to ensure that sector of the economy is in proper direction, in line with your economic policies and social, also political policies that you want to introduce in Nigeria. So these reforms this sacking of Kyari has come to me, is too
little, too late.
Too little, too late.
So are you saying the president's trust and faith in Kyari to stabilize the industry
was misplaced?
Some would say he brought up the Port Harcourt refinery on stream.
No, please.
Look at what's happening with Warri. Look at everything else. In fact, Kyari took pride to say, listen, the naysayers didn't believe we were going to do it, but we did it.
Did what? What did they do?
Reactivate the refineries, the moribund refineries.
And that's something to you are employed to do the job, isn't it? So you did the job, and that's something to tell us that, and how long, and how much, at what cost to Nigerians. Look at what Dangote did. With as a private sector, you didn't have to spend our money, squandered our billions of dollars, on phantom rehabilitation of the refineries, which never came. Even today, as we speak, still are they really those refineries? Are they really performing? Are they producing what they're supposed to produce in terms of PMS and things like that? So the issue is that, and another thing that I want you to also understand is the fact that, you see, the choice of the new managers, that is the board chairman and the technocrats that the president brought in, maybe the intention is good, but we must not lose sight of the history of such, appointments. Ibe Kachuku was appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari when he came on board as the first chief executive officer of NNPC. And what happened? Nothing changed. I mean, the corruption was going on. Nigerians' money was being spent unnecessarily. So many things were happening. Nothing changed. Ibe Kachuku was just like Ojulari now, was executive vice president of ExxonMobil, West Africa. So he was brought in, but what did he do? I know of some certain things that he did, which were not in the interest of this country. So when the President Tinubu bring in these people, look at also, don't forget also the history. I mean, the story of Desiani, who was also in, was it Shell or which company was she, working with or working for that time, and she was brought in as first of all, I think as one of the top people there, and then she became the minister or something like that. So what happened?
Are you questioning
corruption?
The antecedents or the track record of the
exactly
new
yeah, it's not
head?
It's not so much the people. You see, what President Tinubu should have done, what he did now is even half-baked. It's not holistic. This decision of sacking Kyari is not holistic. It's not enough. Because what you should have done, look at that sector of the economy. There are three musketeers there. I'm talking about three arms. You have the NUPRC, you have the NNPRM. Those are the regulatory agencies, and the government is as strong as the regulatory agencies. These regulatory agencies, the people you have managing those agencies are left, there. And they are responsible for all the corruption you are talking about, because they are the ones to enforce the laws because that's their job. The other one is to look at the midstream and downstream sector of the economy to ensure that the technical aspect of it, the laws are supposed to be observed, they are observed. But what are they doing? In fact, they were even fighting, Dangote, who wanted to come and to save Nigerians. And look at the NNPRC. That is the upstream. What is happening? Our crude oil is still being stolen. We don't know how much crude oil are producing as we speak today.
And you think it's a leadership problem?
It's a leadership problem. It's the problem of corruption, and corruption is personified by the chief executive officers of those regulatory agencies I'm talking about. So it's not so much the traders. NNPC is a trading company, isn't it? So it's not so much changing the traders. You have to change the people that are regulating these traders, that they perform and they work in accordance with the interests of this country. Not Kyari. Kyari is just one aspect of it. You have the Komalafe, you have Ahmed Farouk, who also should be taken out of that place. And then bring in people that have technical knowledge, that can perform, that can bring in that, if you like, the private sector initiatives and aggressiveness into the regulatory, management of that sector. It's not so much the trading aspect, and then you see the conflict here of interest that I can see is that you are bringing people that have interest, personal interest, like Ojulari. Ojulari is the executive vice president of Renaissance, group that bought the equity in about $2.4 billion in Shell. So these are people that have private interest, and you want them to come and serve Nigeria at the expense of their interest. Is that what you are telling us? You need a very strong arm of regulatory agencies that can police that industry. It's not the trading arm. And when you are going to deal with trading arm, don't bring traders again that have interest, their own interests. That's what happened in the case of Ibe Kachuku. That's what happened in the case of the former minister I mentioned,
Desiani Alison.
And there are so many of them like that.
Are you saying the president is unaware, or he's aware of the risk and decided he can still trust these people, this next set of people to get the job done?
I'll be disappointed if he's not aware, because he worked in Mobile himself. He was the operator in that sector. He knows how deep and strong the private interest is in that sector of the economy. They're ready to do anything to protect their interest. And it's not so much the individual, it's the environment. Don't say because they are working and performing in Shell or in ExxonMobil efficiently, because when you bring them into this setting that is so disorganized, that is so corrupt, they cannot perform at that level that you want them to perform. You will find them failing. That's why they say when you are in Rome, you do as Romans, isn't it? You find a Nigerian, when he's in London or America or something, he's behaving as a Nigerian. That's what you find in this book that they are bringing into NNPC. They are behaving the way they are behaving because that environment does not tolerate the kind of things that our own environment encourages. So this is what I'm talking about.
Are you saying the oil and gas sector is immune to any sort of change that is going to fight the corruption within the system?
It starts with the leader. It starts with the leader. Why did Bola Tinubu waited? Why did he wait until this time, to change Kyari? What was it he was waiting for? What is it that to do what? So why did he wait this long? And why hasn't he changed the people in the NNPC and then the NNPR? Why hasn't he changed them? They are the bane of the problems, not the traders. The traders, if you have very strong regulatory agency, believe you me, your policies, the interests of the country will be protected by these people.
So will these changes solve anything in your view?
No. The more, it has never worked. I gave you the history. What has happened with somebody as, those who even rose to the position of minister. Desani became the minister. Ibe Kachuku became minister of state too. What did we get out of them? The rot continued with impunity. So I'm telling you, these ones to watch them. Look at what will happen.
But you look at the statement by the presidency regarding this one. It clearly shows that the president not only has confidence that they're going to get the job done, but he believes this is the next chapter in stabilizing the growth that has been witnessed in the sector. You appear to have a contrary position on this one.
Very much so, very much so.
But what do you think the objectives are and what hurdles do they have to cross away from the conflict of interest?
First of all, even the law, governing the industry today, it's compromised in the sense that, you see, I'm talking about the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act itself. When it was about to pass, Nigeria's interest was compromised in that, in the passing of that law, because
which part of it?
Okay, the part of it is that the whole objective of that law was to introduce what you call transparency, accountability, and good governance, isn't it? Okay, when you talk about accountability, transparency, and good governance, you talk about checks and balances, right? You talk about a situation where you don't have just one single agency or one single sector of the economy or of the government running the affairs of that sector of the economy. Today, before the coming of PIA, you had other agencies of the government who supervising the oil and gas sector. The PIA that says they're opening up the industry, they want it to be transparent, accountability and things like that. They now compromised and ensure that even the agencies of government who are checking the activities of the oil and gas sector were expunged deliberately. And it was a collaboration. That bill, that PIA was supported. I know it was an executive bill, but who were the people that promoted it? It was NNPC, isn't it? In collaboration with DPR, which is today the two regulatory agencies. So, and these are the guys that created a situation where you now have the oil and gas sector being supervised by only people who are working in the oil and gas sector, which was contrary to what was there before and contrary to the objective of the PIA itself. So what I'm saying is that these guys that you find today in that sector of the economy do not have the interests of this country at heart. They don't have the interests of this country. And I can tell them, and they know it, that what they are doing is not in the interest of this country. It's just for their own interest. In fact, even that resistance group they talk about, who are the Nigerians, indigenous group that bought the equity in Shell? And who carried out the due diligence of that transfer of shares? Where, who, how was it done? Nigerians didn't know anything. We just woke up and said that, okay, the equity has been sold, and then this is what happened. At how much, at what rate? So the issue is that we need to go beyond, and the president knows what I'm talking about because he's not novice. He's not a novice when it comes to the oil and gas sector.
How in the dark are we about the under the table dealings that one would say has become obvious in this oil and gas sector? Because Nigerians, without necessarily knowing the facts, already believe there's this public perception that the corruption in the NNPCL or in the oil and gas sector is one of the biggest issues that any administration has had to face. How in the dark are we about all these underhand dealings that continues to undermine not just the sector, but energy security and affordability in this country?
Well, we couldn't have been more in the dark than we are today as a country, as far as the oil and gas sector is concerned. And it's deliberate. It's all right. They didn't know. They know what they are doing. You talk about state agencies like Aramco, Petrobras, and others like that, and you see the kind of profit they are bringing out, and the kind of regulatory agencies they have, and the way corruption is minimized. I'm not saying they don't have corruption there, but it's not at the level that we have it here, because you see, we don't know. And it is known to all of them that in this country, Nigeria does not know how much crude oil we are really producing. That is sad.
I mean, don't we have some picture of it from what NATI has been giving us?
What has NATI been telling you? NATI has been telling you that they are carrying out 3 types of audits every year. They carry out what they call process audit. They carry out what they call a financial audit, and they also carry out what they call fiscal audit. So the process audit, unless your process is in line with the best standard, that is the international best standard, you cannot be able to get your fiscal audit and your financial audit right, because if you can't measure your process is, how do you measure? How do you quantify? How do you know how much? What are the instruments are you using? Are you metering what you are doing properly, so that end of the day you can tell how much you have produced? So we don't have meters working in that industry. Our processes are manual. So, and if you are having manual processes in the industry, how do you determine how much you are spending or how much you are supposed to make? And this is what is happening today. So if you say we are in the dark, we couldn't have been more in the dark than we are today in this country today, as we are. Because this audit, that's why every year, NATI will tell you that you're losing billions of dollars, and what have they done? No remediation has been carried out in order to stop those leakages, the financial leakages you have in that sector of the economy. Okay,
part of the statement announcing this reconstitution of the NNPCL board, as well as the new appointment of the chairman and the group CEO, says that the Tinubu administration handed out an immediate action plan to the new board to conduct a strategic portfolio review of the NNPC operated and joint venture assets to ensure alignment with value maximization objectives. And it has also said, listen, this is all a part of an effort to ensure operational efficiency, restoring investor confidence, and boosting local content, driving economic growth, and as well as advancing commercialization and diversification.
Yeah.
At least the wordings are quite alluring, isn't it?
It's an indictment of Kyari's administration.
You don't think they're just saying do more?
No, I don't think they do more. They know corruption is as high as it could be.
You're not suggesting that Engr Yabagi, that Kyari should be investigated, are you?
No, I'm suggesting because he needs to be probed. Really, there's no reason why he shouldn't be probed. This is the public asset we are talking about. It's not anybody's private. It's not Tinubu's money or your money or my money. It's our money together, isn't it? So you are put in charge of it. And here today we have discovered that it has harmed the economy of the country because of the subsidies we are talking about. The mismanagement of the subsidy was under their watch, and then the fact that we don't know how much crude oil we are producing is also under their watch. And that's why I say it's not only Kyari should be sacked. The man in charge of NRP should be sacked. The one in charge of the NNPCL should be sacked, because those are the ones that constitute the problem we are talking about. When you talk about corruption, like they're saying, how do you chase out corruption when the people that are supervising, the implementation or the enforcement of the laws are also corrupt? As it has been shown that they are corrupt, or they are incompetent, as the case may be. If you don't want to say they are corrupt, they are incompetent. But how can they be incompetent when they know what they are doing? When we are losing so much. So the point I'm making is that Tinubu needs to go a step further to really, if he really means to help this country, if he really means to turn things around in that sector of the economy, it's not the trading arm that you have to fight. The trading arm, you have to fight the environment. Who monitors the environment under which not only NNPC, but Shell, ExxonMobil, Total, and all of them that are operating in that sector, including the domestic ones, are operating. How strong are those, regulatory agencies?
Do you expect the new boss, Abdullahi, to outperform Kyari?
Outperform Kyari? I don't know. Because my problem is this. Kyari has not come out openly as an interested, has a private sector interested individual. Now you are bringing a private sector, somebody who has interest, private interest, to come and manage the state interest. Who is gonna do what? Where is the dividing line? How does he do things that will be against the interest of their own private interest? How? We have seen cases of people that were brought from that.
Yeah, but it's not unusual to see private sector players join governments, not just here in Nigeria, but across the world, because we believe in the so-called private sector efficiency when it comes to management. So is it not safe to say that that's what the president hopes to achieve with this appointment?
That's what the president hopes to achieve with this appointment. But when you have an environment that is properly regulated, that is not corrupt as our own, that is not based on individual interest, that is based on the national interest. Nigerians, the way NNPC is run, the way most of the government agencies are run, are based on people's interest. It's not the national interest. That has not changed. Tinubu has not done anything that has changed that. And that's why I'm emphasizing the fact that if he really means to do something about how oil and gas sector is run, he should look into the regulatory agencies. Those are the ones that will protect the interests of this country, not the traders. Traders are there for profit. You can't tell me that Renaissance Group will now start, sacrificing their profit because they have appointed the executive vice president as the CEO of that organization.
And is there no chance that public and private sector interests in this case could both be beneficial? Is it a zero-sum game? Does public interest has to lose for private sector interest to win, or vice versa? Is there no way that Nigeria can win and the private sector can also benefit from this?
Nigeria can win. Nigeria can win only if your laws are obeyed. Law and order. When you have law and order are supposed to protect the interest, the bigger interest, isn't it? The bigger interest is your interest, my interest, and everybody's interest. But if we don't have an environment where law and order is obeyed, it's a haphazard environment. It's you. Who do you know? Who is your man? Who brought you here? How were you appointed? If that is what is, if it's not, then and that has not changed yet in Nigeria. I have not seen that changed. Especially when you look at the manner and what have you of some of these appointments. That's why I said so much is still yet to be done, and Tinubu has to wake up to the responsibility that end of the day, he has to account to his creator.
All right. Okay. Just before we go, this last question about the current cost of energy in the country. We see the price of petrol, move up a little bit in the wrong direction as far as Nigerians are concerned. And Petron is saying that, listen, if, all things being equal, things continue this way, Nigerians could pay above 1,000 naira, taking us back to a couple of months ago when people were quite excited about Dangote coming on stream and the prices crashing down. In fact, a talk of a price war between NNPCL and Dangote. Talk to me about how this new leadership has to relate with Dangote, because there appeared to be a standoff for quite some time between the NNPCL, NMDPRA, and all the other regulators with the Dangote refinery, which you mentioned earlier. regarding the Naira for crude swap, which is still being negotiated, how do you want the new leadership to address this obvious challenge?
The new leadership can address this obvious challenge if the new leadership, like I said, can extricate themselves from what I believe is their private interest. Because Dangote had a problem because of this interest I'm talking about. The problem didn't start, probably didn't start. It's because of this interest. These guys that are being brought to manage NNPC now, they were the ones that constituted, problems for Dangote. That the Naira for crude that we talked about, they are the ones that frustrated it, So I don't know how.
So the problem is getting bigger then?
Yes, of course. It will only get bigger because these guys are not. You think they are Nigerians? They think Nigeria. They don't think Nigeria. They think their pockets because that's their interest. People follow their money, isn't it? They've invested billions of dollars, to trade with Nigerian and for profit. They are not doing it. They are not for the Christmas. That's what Mr. Tinubu should understand. That these guys you are bringing in are not for the Christmas. Okay. They have interest. They've invested so much heavily, And don't say because they operated under an environment different from yours, that does not tolerate, the kind of things we promote here. When you bring them into this environment, they're going to behave differently. They will not. We have seen the history. We've seen the futility of that done. Ibe Kachuku is a good example. Design is also another good. There are so many of them. I can't remember some of them now that we are brought to do. But what they do, they first of all, they promoted their own interest. I know of a program that was in place before Ibe Kachuku was appointed. Right. As the moment he was appointed, the first program he frustrated was that program that was to check the excesses. Right.
Okay. The next couple of weeks and months would definitely be interesting to watch, especially looking at the price of petrol and then the relationship that would come from this new leadership and other players within the sector. Engr Yabagi Sani, as always, a pleasure. Thank you so much for your expertise analysis on this one. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, okay. Yeah. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you most kindly for joining us. Daily Politics returns tomorrow, live and exclusive on Trust TV. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. See you soon.